Hey guys, welcome and welcome back. Thank you to all the subscribers for supporting the channel. Today I'm going to go through many books that we will be reading for third grade. We will be studying medieval times. This video will focus more on some fairy tales and some informational books. I will have maybe 2 more videos coming out. Another one about knights and castles, and then another video with books about dragons and unicorns and things of that nature. But this one will have some fairy tales in it, so let's get started. So firstly, I want to talk about some readers, things that my daughter will be reading independently. This one is The Enchanted Castle, and I have shared a lot of these on my shorts. This is by Usborne Young Reading, and this one is a level 2. It is by E. Nesbit. And we will be reading some more stories by E. Nesbit, but in this story it is a chapter book. It's about some children that go searching for an enchanted castle. They find a girl with a magic ring, and the magic ring helps them vanish. And it's all about the adventures and experiences they get into. Now, this is a really nice book. I love the way that it's written. It is a condensed version of E. Nesbit's book, The Enchanted Castle. It's like a 300-page book. So I thought this was nice that it's something condensed that a child can read. So along with that, we're going to be reading the Magic Treehouse series. Here I have The Night at Dawn and The Night of the Ninjas. And you might think, well, that's kind of strange. Why do you have ninjas in medieval times? So we will be learning about feudal Japan as well as the medieval Europe. So that's why I have these two. And again, I've mentioned these in a short. Magic Treehouse is a very popular book series. This is great leveled reading for a third grader. But I also went ahead and I got Magic Treehouse, the graphic novel. This is The Night of the Ninjas. I'll flip through this one so you can see what it looks like. And I also have the graphic novel, The Night at Dawn. My daughter already read that one. As you can see, there's not a lot of text in here. And so I don't really like that. I want my daughter reading more than that, but she really likes the graphic novel. So this is really a supplement while we're reading the actual chapter books. And then finally, for some independent reading, we have this book by Meg McIntosh, The Mystery at the Medieval Castle, and this book, The Middle Ages, an Interactive History Adventure by Alison LaSure. I believe I pronounced that correctly. So this is more of a fictional read, although I've heard that it has some historical facts in here. What I loved about both of these two books is that this one is a solve it yourself mystery. So you go through, you figure out some clues, and then it helps you get to the end of the story. And based on your clues, you determine the end of the story. And I thought that was really cool. And so this book also has the same thought behind it. So it has 3 story paths. You have 45 choices and 21 different endings. So your kids could read this one over and over and over, and it would end up with a different ending. But what I liked about this book is that it has a lot more history in it, a lot more facts. And I think the length of the text is good for a third grader. I like that it has real pictures, some artwork in here. So we're going to try reading this one. Okay, next is some informational books. This is First Facts About the Middle Ages by Fiona McDonald. I like Fiona McDonald. She has done several history books. I've looked through other ones. I really like her, so we'll probably be using Fiona McDonald's books for Rome, We're also using her for Celtic studies, and we'll be using her for the Middle Ages, and maybe to learn about samurais. I believe she also had a book about samurais. So inside, it has, you know, your information about the Middle Ages. But what I like is that she has small segments, but she also has longer text. And then she has these illustrations. But I like that the topics that she picks are very interesting. So here are some of the things that they talk about in the contents. And she really makes history a little less boring. This one is DK, Castle and Knights. This one I feel is like a classic. There's a lot of DK books. DK is always really wonderful for information and real pictures. This is one that we had on hand, so this is what we're going to look at while talking about medieval times. Of course, there are many different DK books that you could go through. And so this is just one book about Castle and Knights that I'll be sharing. I have this on hand. It's part of our own library, so that's why I share it now. But I will be doing a video just on castles and knights that will include a lot more books and some fairy tales just about castles and knights. And so now we're getting into the good stuff. So these are some picture books. This one is a Frog Prince. Now, a lot of times, you know, Frog Prince, you've probably heard the story where a princess goes down by a lake or a river or some water, and a frog jumps on her, and then she turns out the frog is a prince. She kisses the frog, and then, you know, they live happily ever after. This one I liked because it is a bit of a different story. So same idea where the princess goes down by the water. She drops a golden ball into the lake, and the frog says, I'll help you out. And she says, if you help me, you know, you'll be my best friend, and you can come to the castle, and you can stay with me in the castle. Well, the frog helps her, retrieves her golden ball, and she runs off. And the frog ends up hopping to the castle, knocks on the door. The king answers, and Frog tells him what happens. The king says, please be our esteemed guest. And they have this big banquet, and the princess is really upset because she's like, this frog is so ugly. And she does not want to have anything to do with the frog. Well, the king really likes the frog, and he says, I'm so sorry that my daughter is acting like a spoiled brat. What can I do for you? And the frog ends up going on a quest, and then he meets another princess at the end of the story, and they fall in love, and they do live happily ever after. But I won't give away the ending, but I thought it was a really nice rendition of the story. The next book is called Catkin by Antonia Barber, illustrated by P.J. Lynch, and this book is fabulous. It is an Irish tale, I believe. It's set in the British Isles, and it is about a cat who is set to protect a child, a little baby. And this baby's born. His parents are so happy because it took them a very long time to have a child, but the baby is so wonderful that one day these fairies come and see the little baby or a toddler, and the fairies want this baby, and so they take the baby away, and it's up to the cat to go find and save the baby and bring him back to his mom and dad. And so it's a very lovely story about this little cat who is very clever. This little cat can talk, and the fairies talk to the cat. The cat has to solve riddles in order to bring the baby back, or also have to spend a lifetime with the fairies. And so I just thought it was an excellent story. The next book is The Mightiest Heart by Lynn Cullen. And we love this story. It is about a dog, and the dog's name is Gellert. And this is actually an old Welsh tale that they believe is based on a true story of a prince with a dog named Gellert. And there is, I believe, monument in Wales for this prince in this story. So I thought that was interesting. But the illustrations are lovely. It's about a prince who has a dog who's very loyal. He loves his dog so much. He's had him since a child. He grows up to be a man, and then he gets married and everything's wonderful. But his new bride then says that she doesn't like Gellert very much, and she kind of wants to kick Gellert out of the castle. And they have a baby, and Gellert is protecting the baby, and something happens to the baby, and they think that it was Gellert, and Gellert runs away, and then in the end, the prince goes to find him because it turns out nothing had happened to the baby. Gellert was protecting the baby, and the prince goes out to find his most loyal friend, and the prince gets attacked, and Gellert has to save the prince. And again, I won't give away the end of the story, but it's a fabulous tale. The next book is Dick Whittington and His Cat, and it is by Marcia Brown. And this is a really lovely book. Also, it is about a poor boy named Dick Whittington, and he lives out in the countryside of England, and he's so poor, but he hears about London and how people in London were ladies and gentlemen and wealthy, and so he runs off to London with a wagoner. And when he gets there, he's like, what can I do? I need to get a job. But he couldn't find a job, and he sat down and he cried because he was an orphan and he was hungry. And then one day a man comes to him and he says, why are you crying? He's like, well, I'm hungry and I don't have any money. He said, well, I can give you a job. Come work in my home. And so Dick Whittington goes to work with this man, but the people in his household who also work for him don't like this little boy, and so they tried to get rid of him. But Dick Whittington was a very good worker. The only problem is he couldn't get to sleep because all these rats were running around everywhere. And one day he cleans the shoes of somebody, and they give him a penny, and he sees a girl with a cat, and he says, how much is that cat? I need a cat. And she's like, oh, it's a great mouser. It'll bring lots of money. And he says, well, I only have a penny and I really need a cat. And this lovely girl, she gives him the cat, and the cat becomes a good friend of his and becomes really good at catching mice. And then little Dick Whittington is able to sleep at night. But as time goes on, he needs to get more money, and then the person I believe he's working for says he needs something from little Mr. Whittington, and he says, well, I don't have anything, I just have this cat. And so they take his cat, but at the end of the story, he ends up becoming the wealthiest person in London because of his cat. And you'll find out more about it when you read the story. The next book is Teresa Makes a Tapestry, written by Alexandra D. Hinrichs. There's another book that's pretty popular out there about a little kid who makes a book. So this is in a similar fashion, but instead of making a book, she's making a tapestry. And I thought this looked very interesting, so I thought I'd give it a try. It's a little bit dry, but it still is a good book. I guess you would consider this more like a living book, living history type of book. And so it's about this girl and her family. They are tapestry makers. They make tapestries for noblemen and wealthy people. and she has a dream of growing up and following in her family's footsteps and making beautiful tapestry, but she's just learning. And so her father, he's a merchant of sorts. He comes back. He has this beautiful picture. She has an idea to make a tapestry of this picture, but her brother doesn't think she's good enough, but her parents do think she's good enough to do it, so they help her, and it takes her a little while, but she makes the tapestry. It's beautiful. The king comes for a visit, sees it, and decides that he wants this in his castle, and then she ends up working for the king. And at the end of the book, it says it was her dream to be such a good tapestry maker. The next book is Kevin and the Blackbirds by David Allman. This is an Irish tale, and it is actually about Saint Kevin, although in this book it's a different rendition, and it's just about a boy named Kevin. And so a family brings their son to a monastery because they're too poor to take care of him anymore. They're afraid that he'll starve to death, and they ask the monks to take him in and take care of him, and they agree to do that. And so as a child, Kevin spends his days in the monastery, and he spends his time outside with the wild animals because he loves animals and they love him. They have a very close connection. And then one day he's looking out his window, longing to be outside because the monks said now that he is, a teenager or a younger adult, he needs to start focusing on becoming a monk, but he doesn't really want to be a monk. And so one day he sees a bird outside, and he puts his hands out, and this little bird starts to make a nest in his hands, and he holds his hands there while they make the nest, lay the eggs, and then the eggs hatch and the baby chicks fly away. And then his role is done. And the monks see this, and they tell him that he's not made for the monastery, and that he should go live his life outdoors with the animals, as he so clearly was intended to do. And so I really like this book because I feel like it has a lot of different morals to it. So you kind of learn that humans are connected to nature. We should protect nature. That animals are just like people. They're sacred little beings. And I also like that Kevin shows patience, so he learns about being patient and kind, and then at the end he gets to go and live his life. The monks realize he's not made to be a monk. He needs to go out and live his life. The next book is The Bee-Man of Orn by Frank R. Stockton and illustrated by P.J. Lynch. This is actually a longer story by Frank R. Stockton, but this is the condensed version. It's a picture book, and I thought it was great. And so it's about this old man, this poor old man who's very dirty, has nothing to his name except for some bees, and he carries bees around, and he eats honey, and he sells his honey. But people, they're kind of disgusted by him, and they're like, why don't you do something? Why do you have all these bees around you? And one day a wizard comes to see him. He sees him out and about. And he says, you were transformed from something else. You're actually not a human. And this man, he asks, well, what was I transformed from? And the wizard says, well, I can't tell you that because I'm still low-level wizard, so you'd have to ask a higher-level wizard to tell you that. But you could go on a journey and find out. And so that's what he does. He goes on a journey to find out what he was before he became this bee-man. And I love how they describe his journey. and he ends up seeing some noblemen and royalty, and they're very mean to him. And he says, oh no, I could have never been one of these people because they're way too mean. And then he ends up going to this fortress. It kind of looks scary. And inside the fortress, there is a boy who's waiting there. And they team up and they go into this fortress together, where they meet an imp. And the imp is mischievous. And he kind of just wants them to get eaten by things inside the fortress. But the Bee-Man's pretty clever, and so is this young guy. And so the Bee-Man ends up finding a dragon. And in the dragon's lair, there's this little kid. And the dragon's like, I'm going to eat you up. And the Bee-Man has to, well, doesn't have to, but he decides to save the child. And what he does is he throws his bees at the dragon. So the only thing that he had, he throws at the dragon to save this child's life. And then they run out of the cave. And at the end of the story, the man realizes what he used to be. And he says, I used to be a child. That's what I was. And so he gets transformed back into a child, but then he grows up again and he becomes exactly what he was originally, which is a Bee-Man. And so I thought it was a great story, very interesting, makes you think about a lot of different things as you're going through, about doing the right thing, about kindness, and whether or not you can outrun your true destiny. The next book is Giant John. It's by Arnold Lobel. We are Arnold Lobel fans here. And so this book is just a fun little book. It may be for younger kids, actually, but I still thought it was kind of cute. So it's a book about a giant, and his family's really poor too. And he needs to go find a job. He tells his mom, I'm going to find a job and I'll come back with lots of food. So that's what he does. And he meets this king and queen. They're very nice to him. They give him lots of gold. He has some fairy friends. And then at the end, he goes back home with a bag full of gold. And him and his mom have food and they sit down for a meal. Okay, and so the next few books, as you can see, it's about the plague or the Black Death. So this one I have shared before. It's a Usborne reading, young reading the Black Death. I found it hard to find books for younger kids about the Black Death, probably because kids are sensitive to these type of things. But this one is a reader, so I'm going to try to have my daughter read through this. She'll probably read it with me. And so I can show you what the inside looks like. They have a nice timeline at the end. Nothing too scary in here, although there is one page towards the back that has a picture of people putting mummies, here it is, into a grave. So that might be a little spooky for some kids. So probably not appropriate for kids younger than 3rd grade. The next book is The Black Death by Tom McGovern. And this book is really good. This is something that you would read to your kids for sure. I would say this is more maybe 5th grade type of reading text level, but excellent information in here. What I found fascinating about this book is that the plague actually hasn't gone away. And I did not know that. So it was up until 1995 that they found instances of the Black Plague in the world. And so they ended up squashing, anytime they keep tabs on it, so anytime the plague pops up, they will squash it so that it doesn't spread. And if you know or you don't know about the Black Plague, millions of people died all over the world because of the spread of the plague, which was a virus that was spread through the lice that would bite mice, and then the lice would bite people. And so one of the reasons that we're talking about the plague, it was a big moment in history, but also cats played a very important role. And so that's why I wanted to tell my daughter about the plague, because she really likes cats. And so cats were very beneficial during the Black Death, and helped kill the mice that carried disease. Also, what I learned in this book was there are actually 3 different types of plague. The bubonic plague is only one type of plague, so there are 2 others. So anyway, while the topic is a bit gruesome, it is interesting. And so along with learning about the plague, I wanted to learn about medicine. And so I have this book here, Medicine. It's a DK Eyewitness book. I'm sure they have others. This one looks a bit like an older book, but this talks about all different types of medicine, medical history, not just medieval times, but there's portions of the book that does talk about medicine in medieval times. And the next 3 books I thought were great for talking about how people used medicine in medieval times to fight off the plague and other instances of illness. So this one is called Strange Medicine, and it's all about weird remedies that people would use. And you can see they talk about Chinese medicine and Egyptian medicine and Middle Eastern medicine. And then, of course, they also talk about medieval times, medicine in the medieval times, things that we use today that come from the past. This one's similar. This one's just about, well, not just about the plague. It does talk about other things like yellow fever in here. But they have a section on the plague. It's very cartoonish, infographic type of book. So short little excerpts that might be better for kids who don't want to listen to long text, like perhaps the first 2 books I shared. But this one was my favorite of all. I Feel Better with a Frog in My Throat, History's Strangest Cures. And so this one also has some history about the plague and the cures during medieval times. And they also talk about cures from other places in the world. This one was super interesting. My daughter really liked this one. I prefer the graphics in here. I also like the writing in here, the way that they write in here. And so this one was super interesting, kind of funny. You have some funny tales in here. So of the 3 books that I shared, I would say if you only get one, get this one, I Feel Better with a Frog in My Throat. For interesting facts and remedies. But if you want some more historical stuff, you could go with this one, or this one, The Black Death, and this one as well, Strange Medicine. And then finally, we're going to talk about King Arthur. So we're going to be reading stories about King Arthur. So if you have not watched my other videos, first we'll be learning about Romans, the end of Rome. Then we'll learn about the Celts and how fairy tales began. Then we'll be learning about medieval times, and we will be reading about King Arthur, because a lot of Arthurian tales come from old Celtic tales. And so this one is by Mary Pope Osborne. So she wrote the Magic Treehouse series, and this is the table of contents. So they do talk about Finn McCool, Beowulf, The Sword in the Stone, the Island of the Lost Children, which I think is the Children of Lear, an old Irish tale, The Song of Roland, the Werewolf, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Robin Hood and his merry men, and Chanticleer and the Fox. I believe that's how you say it. And so just to flip through, there is quite a bit of text, so this is probably going to be a read aloud. And this is more of the traditional stories of King Arthur, which is what I was looking for. There are different renditions, but I want something more aligned to the older versions of King Arthur. And then I have these 2 additional books for fun. This one is Robin Hood. I just really loved the graphics in here. This is like an old book. I say old. It's from like the 90s, it seems like. But it's just about Robin Hood. And so I wanted to read this one. And I don't have an author for this book, but it is, oh, here we are. It is by J. Walker McSpadden. If you're interested, I love the illustrations in here. And then this one is The Legend of King Arthur. It is a rendition of Howard Pyle's book. So Howard Pyle wrote a longer novel of King Arthur, and from what I understand, it's a famous author. This one is a rendition, and so it's illustrated by Luigi Galante, Simone Boni, Francesca de Ottavi, and David Borganicht. And so I'll show you the inside of this one. And I really like the illustrations in here. So of course this is a longer story of Merlin and King Arthur, and how Arthur was a boy and how he was adopted, and then the legend of the sword and the stone, you know, the traditional thing. And then Arthur finds the sword and pulls it out and becomes king. And I really thought this was a great rendition. I read through the whole thing. Have not read it to my daughter yet, but I really enjoyed it. And so I recommend this one. And then last but not least is this book of Little Folk by Lauren Mills. These are tales of fairies and poems of fairies throughout the world. My daughter was enchanted by the front cover right when she saw it. I was as well, which is why I picked this book out, and we have been reading through this and we both really like it. The illustrations are beautiful, the writing is well done, and she tries to keep the original poem, the original writing. I think some of the stories have been adapted, but she picks different poets and different authors who've written about fairies and compiled them into this book. We read one story about the Mayan fairies. We read Thumbelina, which my daughter had never heard of before. And I had read Thumbelina as a kid, but I didn't remember the story that well. We really liked Thumbelina. And then it has her favorite story in here, The Elves and the Shoemaker, which is a Grimm's fairy tale. And I didn't know it was a Grimm's fairy tale, but we've read The Elves and the Shoemaker so many times. This is a story about Thumbelina. And so we haven't gotten to that part of the book yet, but I'm sure it'll be very good because everything we've read so far in here has been really good. So I recommend this one as well. So that is the end of our medieval book list for now. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found some gems and that you can incorporate some of these books into your learning. And I will see you next time with some more medieval books. As I mentioned before, I will be doing books about knights and castles. We'll have some informational books. We'll definitely have some more fairy tales. And then along with that, but it will probably be later on in the year, maybe sometime around Christmas time. We'll see. I'll see if I can try to put it out during the summer. But I will also do a book just about samurais and Japanese lore and Japanese fairy tales, so traditional Japanese tales. And I really look forward to that as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see